Um, Now, I would like to move on to our next speaker, who I know we are a bit behind schedule. Dr. Doğuş Şimşek currently teaches sociology at the School of Slavonic and Eastern European Studies at UCL, which was my university, so I'm happy. Her main field of research and teaching is migration and integration, covering topics such as transnational migration, refugee studies, racism, gender, and migration, as well as second generation's identity. Miss Doğuş, sorry, can I pass it over to you?
Yes, thank you very much. You hear me properly?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. Thank you for organizing this event, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to share my research with all of you. So today I'm going to talk about my research, but that is already published. So it is about integration processes of Syrian refugees in Turkey, but I tried to understand it from more of a sociological perspective that is related to class. So I will just discuss more in depth why this was important thing to look at. In the case of Syrian, I'm going to say refugees because according to international law, they are refugees. So why it is important their case is because here we are seeing mass migration flow. So when there is a mass flow, the heterogeneity is sort of they're already heterogeneous, but it is even more. For instance, in terms of class, they're the ones who are coming from urban areas, but they're also the ones who are very wealthy, wealthier people. They also migrated. So I was trying to understand whether the migration policy is properly working for everyone in equal terms. And I was interested in putting the refugees as agents, like in the center of the research. So this research was not, it was sort of going beyond this methodological nationalism. So I was also aiming to focus on methodological individualism, like sharing their experiences and voices. That is, for me, is very important. So I did in-depth interviews with 120 Syrian refugees in Istanbul, Gaziantep, and Ankara for this particular research. So what I tried to understand is that the policy is neoliberal policy. So in a way that it is sort of supporting the ones who are beneficial to countries, but the ones who are not are left behind. So, but I wanted to research this. I wanted to find out whether how this is affecting the lives of refugees in daily or in relation to their structural constructions. So I was interested in finding out their access to legal rights, their experiences of accessing to legal rights. So the questions that I asked was related to whether whether they can easily get work permits, whether they can easily, when they go to hospitals, they can easily get treated. So whether their children are carrying out education, whether they're finding difficult to find accommodation, and more or less I try to understand their settlement process experiences. But I choose my participants in a way that because Syrian refugees are very heterogeneous, so we are not talking about one homogeneous community here. It's also very, very important to highlight. So they're ethnic in ethnic terms, in religion, in the case of religion, and in relation to gender, generation, class, and also race. So they're very, very heterogeneous, and also Palestinians are also migrated to Turkey, but this is not really under discussion. but their experiences are also important because they're experiencing of being forced displaced in second time. So I was trying to understand whether these heterogeneity also sort of affecting the way that they are settling in the society. But I was not really interested in, so I choose my participants from different ethnic, religious, and like class backgrounds and gender backgrounds. But as a result of the research, the class differences appeared as a more influential factors in their settlement processes more than religion and ethnicity or gender, because it is closely related to how migration policy sort of frames all these important aspects when it comes to access to labor market, or when it comes to access to education, or even not only in terms of legal terms and also in relation to rights, but also in relation to constructing social bridges as well. So when they are sort of relating with the members of the receiving society, class also matters. This is also one of the findings that I got out of this research. And another research is also trying to understand whether race and class intersect as well, because a lot of like the experiences of racism is also very closely intersected with the idea of class, or with the conceptualizing of class. So there's another publication I'm still working on, but class, the role of class is something that is not really highlighted when it comes to refugees sort of apostrophes integration. So it is not really seen, because I think it is important. It is very important. It's important to show the way these policies are structured. Also, it's also important to show that refugees are agents, and states always failing to provide them equal access to rights and resources, and in most cases they have to find their own ways to settle into the countries, because not only Turkey is an example of neoliberal country that has a neoliberal migration policy, but we also see these examples in Europe as well. In European countries are also example of countries that are proposing neoliberal migration policies to migrants. So sort of good and bad migrants, or good or bad refugees, are more or less identified in relation to whether they are beneficial to the country or not. But this understanding of benefits is more or less also closely related to the to finance and economy as well. So it also, another important finding that came out from this research is that the legal status, because they are still under temporary protection in Turkey, it's going to be 9 years, or it has been 9 years already. It's going to be 10 years. For 10 years being under temporary protection, that's the only example in the world. Of course, there are temporary protection is, of course, there's something applied to other cases. It has been used, but not for that long. So we are already seeing examples of temporary protection regime that has been applied to forced displaced people, but not for that long. So yes, it's good that they're offered access to citizenship, but again, this is not something that equally all refugees can get. So here it is also, we can also see that selective aspect of understanding citizenship that is also not really in favor of the majority of Syrians who are not able to provide that they can support the society that they migrated to through their finance or through their establishments or through their profession. So equality is very important, but what we are witnessing when it comes to refugee receiving countries, that access to equal rights are not are like out of the picture and out of the discussion. And I came up with the term called class-based integration out of this research. Why I call this as class-based integration is because the policy is structured around whether they're beneficial in terms of what they're providing to the community. So I think I've just summarized. Of course, this is, I mean, if you're interested, and I can send you the article to participants, but maybe it would be good to have maybe some more time for questions, if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Doğuş. And I think a lot of our participants do actually want to follow up and read some of the stuff you published. So we will be in touch to get that from you and possibly send it after. We do have a question. I have a question. Ilker, can you please come forward? Thank you. Wait. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to ask this. You said that there is considerable difference between people who are coming from the lower income families and the upper income families, and when they come to Turkey, according to in terms of their access to benefits and stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to ask about their integration with the host community. How is there a difference between the lower income families and the upper income families? More, which one is more integrated or less integrated with the Turks who are living in, or is there maybe there is no difference? And another thing is there is a lot of studies, surveys, whatever, asking people if if the war would end tomorrow, would you go back to your country? And numbers differs, but maybe half of them in some of the cases say, I don't want to go back. Does it also differ based on the income level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. So in terms of, I touched it in the article, because I focused on an integration framework proposed by Agger and Strang. They also talk about the social aspects of integration, and they try to understand this in 3 different categories. The first one is social bridges. The second one is social connections and social links. So social bridges refers to their relationship with the members of the receiving society. So, but it is more than saying hi and how are you everyday life. So it is more related to being a friend or supporting each other. So as from this research, it's appeared that the ones who are wealthier, the ones who establish businesses, they are the ones who are well connected in social terms with the members of receiving society. Why this was the case? Because they had a space. For instance, they had restaurants, and not only Syrians were going to dine in the restaurants, but also members of the receiving society as well. So one of the participants was telling me that through food or through these establishments, I get to know people. And it has appeared that they are not seen as a threat to the society, because they were considered as they are providing a service to the society, through these businesses, providing a diversity to the society. They were also highlighted that they have also received a lot of help and support from other the people who owns, Turkish people who owns stores or restaurants as well, because they were also happy that they said, because of the presence of Syrian refugees, we started to sell, Syrian products as well. So our customer profile has also diversified in a way. But on the other hand, lower income refugees, they were the ones who are very isolated. First of all, they had to they were employed in informal labor market. When they're employed in informal labor market, they had to work, you know, longer hours. They said we have only one day off, and on this day, let's say on Sunday, we just sleep and we just stay at home. We don't really have time to, you know, socialize with other people. And they are the ones who are seen as they are in need of state assistance. That's why they are also recognized as they are taking everything. So in a way, this was the difference, but maybe wider research, maybe in-depth research on that topic might also suggest something else. And the other question is about returning to countries, their countries of origin. So I didn't directly ask this question because I thought it might be intimidating, but it came up from their answers, especially elderly refugees. They are the ones who want to go back to Syria. Younger ones, they want to go to Europe because they say we want to have a future and we want to study and have a proper profession, but this is not seen to be possible in Turkey. But elderly ones, they say they're missing their countries of origin. That's why they want to live close to Syria, especially in Gaziantep, Kilis, or Hatay, in that cities. So, but I didn't do a particular research on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. I mean, I think it's just a good for us to kind of see things in a different perspective. We don't always see the layers of society and conventions and what the implications it has on people, especially migrants and refugees.
Yeah.
We have one more question for you, Dr. Şimşek. Hani Al-Husseini has asked, would you please be able to tell us the difference between the refugee status and temporary protection status, as most Syrians in Turkey are on temporary protection status?
Yes. Thank you. That's a very good question. So Turkey, refugee status it came up with 1951 Geneva Convention. There was a convention where they defined the term refugee and what sort of rights associated and protection associated with this term. So Turkey is a signatory of 1951 Geneva Convention, but Turkey accepted geographical limitation, which means that Turkey said, I will only provide refugee status with to the people who migrate from Europe. But outside, if they migrate outside of Europe, I'm not going to provide them a refugee status because of my geographical positioning. So when they are under refugee status, meaning that they are under international protection. They're protected by the international law, and their rights are also defined by the international law. So the countries who recognize them as refugees, they have to follow the international law and international protection. But in the case of temporary protection, it is something given by the state. So state sort of decides on how long this will go for and what kind of rights are going to be associated with that kind of status. Of course, it is not only dependent on the state. Of course, it is there are mechanisms like the EU is also, for instance, monitoring. UNHCR monitoring the temporary protection, but it's more or less dependent on the decision of the government. So they are not under international protection; they're under the protection of the Turkish government. So that's why a lot of Syrian refugees would like to move abroad in order to gain refugee protection and to be able to be provided by the international law, which also guarantees them after a certain period of time, if the country allows, that they can also apply for naturalization, and then they can be granted citizenship in equal terms, if regardless of whether they are contributing to the economy of the country or not. But in the case of Turkey, if you look at how citizenship is is granted is economic in relation to economic terms.
Thank you so much. I know you do have to leave. Is it possible to get one more question? Or,
yes, of course. Yeah.
I actually have a question for you. I'm very interested in the whole neoliberal approach to migration. And I just want to know, based on your research, do you see this trend ever changing, or do you see it getting more enforced and tighter? Because I think we see this, I'm from South Africa, and we do see this kind of class system with African migrants. Do you see a shift, or?
I think it's getting tighter. So especially with the COVID, I think, especially here in the UK, when we look at the new migration policy, the new point system they proposed, it is double neoliberal. So it's just it is getting worse in terms of refugees and migrants. But a lot of countries, they're aiming to provide their to protect their resources and receive less refugees, less migrants, and if they want to receive, they want to get the ones who can contribute to the. So of course, everyone can contribute to the society, but in their understanding of contribution is different.
We have another question. I'm so sorry. Everyone is dying to ask you questions.
Oh, that's fine.
Is it okay? I'll limit it to 2 more questions and then we can.
Yes.
Okay, so we have Emma, one of our old members, current members still. She's actually at Oxford University in the UK. Emma, can you hear us, Emma? Hi, welcome, Emma.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Hi.
I feel like I'm in a bad phone commercial. So what you're saying about class-based integration made me think about some research on racially stratified integration in some countries like the US, where immigrant groups will not integrate into the society as a whole so much as integrate into a particular racialized group. And I wonder if you see that as analogous to what's happening to refugees and other immigrants in Turkey, that they're not integrating so much into the whole as into a particular class group, or if you see that a lot of people are integrating into perhaps a lower class group. Are they able to maintain a similar class status, or do they lose some status in the process of that integration?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Thank you. As far as I understood, in relation to whether they're integrating to the groups that they're class-wise similar, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or perhaps if there are different degrees of integration depending on class status.
In terms of settlement, because I looked at integration as a process that is continuing for a long time, not ending process. So if you look at this as a long, settlement process, I can see that the ones who feel that they cannot really settle in the country, they do not really want to integrate to the society at all, in any sense. So for short term, I would say adaptation is there for all of them, but for a longer term integration, establishing their lives, for instance, buying, like flats or establishing businesses, it is not the same for everyone, especially for low income refugees. They do not see Turkey as their final destination, and when they do not have any aspiration, then they do not have any aspiration to integrate.
Thank you.
And our last question, I promise I will not be taking any more. Actually, one of our speakers, who turns out is a huge fan of you, Tifa, can I ask you to ask your question?
Hi, it's me again. Thank you for having me, and thank you for accepting asking the question. Actually, my question, I got like, let's say 60 or 70% of the answer from your answer for the last question, but I still it's confusing because I'm working in integration project, and still I would love to hear from you. In your opinion, what can be the best definition of integration? I know it can take days of answering this question, because it's a big, but if you can put it in a short answer, and what the responsibilities of the migrants or the migrants and the host community and the state also. If you just can just put it in one answer, I would be. I would appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Tifa. It's very important question actually, because I have been also thinking around this a lot. So everybody talks about integration, like policymakers, scholars, the government representatives, and UNHCR, you know, IOM, all these INGOs and NGOs, but they define integration, but you know, not refugees or migrants. They are not the one. They never been asked about how they define integration or what they understand from integration. So without having their voice, I don't think we can talk about integration at all. So my understanding of integration is to put their needs and experiences at the center of the discussion, and then according to their needs, then try to find out what can be done to respond to their needs. So equal rights for everyone, regardless of their situation, or regardless of their class background, regardless of ethnicity, so or gender, or religious backgrounds, or so equal rights and access to equal rights and resources is important. And also the welcoming them is also very important, because if they're not feeling welcomed in the society that they migrated into, they will not have an aspiration to learn the language or establish a relationship with the members of the receiving society. So I think it would be very important to find out how they define integration, what they want from the society or from the country. I think the best integration policy would be when we put them at the center of the discussion. I hope this answers your question.
I think he might have been muted. Thank you so much. I think we were all exposed to a lot of information I think we weren't aware of. Dr. Şimşek, sorry, excuse me. Şimşek. I'm sorry, my Turkish is terrible. We obviously have gotten a lot of responses, so we will be in touch with you to try and get more of your articles and your published work, because I think our community is really interested to read more.
Thank you. So if participants are interested, they can email me directly. I can send the article. I can write my article here.
Amazing.
My Gmail. So
I've actually already had some people ask how they can find out more and get in touch. That's perfect. And everyone, Tifa, please use this email. Use it at your discretion. That's what I want to say.
So Tifa, if you want to email me about African migrants, please do. We'll get in touch.
Yes, of course. I have been already writing to Tahia through WhatsApp, just like I'm asking for your contact details and everything. So I'm super happy now to have this opportunity. And
thank you.
I'll be getting in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for other participants as well, if they need the article, they can write to me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, sorry I have to leave for another meeting because it's World Refugee Day today. So it's just everybody's organizing an event. But it was very good to participate in this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you for considering us and joining us. Thank you so much.
Bye.